Hi, everyone. My name is Karthik, and I'm one of the co-founders at iSTEM. Welcome again to our webinar series. And today I have the pleasure and honor of having one of my very good friends with us, Ajay Minocha. So Ajay works as a credit officer with Deutsche Bank. He's responsible for preparing credit rating reports and credit reviews for bank corporate clients located across US and Europe. He was born with retinitis pigmentosa, a degenerative eye condition making him 100% blind by the age of 19. Assistive technologies like screen readers and OCR services proved to be extremely helpful for him, playing a pivotal role in helping him earn his MBA from prestigious IIM Indore and becoming the first blind person in India to receive the Charter Financial Analyst Charter from CFA Institute in the US. Today, Ajay has more than 5 years of experience in the banking and financial services industry. He's also associated as an honorary secretary with Blind Graduates Forum of India, a non-profit, a Mumbai-based NGO working for the empowerment of visually impaired persons. Ajay is also the winner recently of the NAB Sarojini Triloknath Role Model Award and NCP EDP Mindtree Helen Keller Award this year. So Ajay, again, thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Karthik. And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. And yes, really excited to be here. And thanks for the introduction.
Thank you so much. I'm sure there's a lot that not just people who are blind or visually impaired can learn from your journey, having known you, but also there's so much that you've basically been able to accomplish. Some of it using technology, some of it using other practical hacks. So I think it'll be very interesting for everyone to kind of hear through that in terms of what is possible and how you've been able to achieve whatever you've been able to achieve thus far, right? And what other technical solutions are possible that would make it even easier for someone who might be in your shoes where you were a couple of years ago, or someone even now, right? Like who might be doing something which is similar to what you're trying to do. So I think that is something that we'll try to sort of discuss today. But I think to get us started, can you briefly talk about yourself in your words? I've done this intro, but just walk us through your journey a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, apart from whatever is already mentioned in the introduction by Karthik, I would say I hail from a small town in Delhi NCR, Faridabad. Why I'm saying a small town? Because not many facilities, especially in the city, when it comes to persons with vision impairment. So say till my 12th standard, till my schooling ended officially, I did not know that there is something called like a screen reading software or any assistive technology which can help someone like me I was with extreme low vision at that time, who can help such persons to actually operate computer or be friends with technology. Yeah, so it's in last 10 odd years that I could actually learn all this technology. I started to work on my tech skills in 2010. And one more thing which I want to highlight here is till my entire schooling I have completed from state board. So uh, language used to be a big barrier, at least in the early days when I was of my college education, as well as when I'm Indore for my post graduation. So these were the two main things where which were holding me back initially, and then now that was something which I had to cover extra in addition to what a general person with vision impairment would have covered. And apart from that, yes, although right now I'm at my hometown, but I generally live away from my family, all alone in the financial capital of the country. And apart from my work, I also enjoy tandem cycling. I've ran a couple of marathons, not full though, not even half. Some of them quarter, some more than that.
That
But yeah,
works better than me, so it works.
yeah. So I enjoy some recreational activities as well.
Yeah, awesome. Very holistic indeed. I want to take a step back and go back to the days when you did not know about a screen reader. I want to briefly talk about this notion of lack of awareness, right? Like, how did you get to learn about screen readers in the first place? And in retrospect, in hindsight, what do you think now as to what can be done about this lack of awareness that there might be in people, especially who are, low vision, may not necessarily be, let's say, 100% blind.
So there are three things to it. One, not many people know about, even at this day and age, not many people know about assistive technology. Second, not many people accept that they need assistive technology. And when I say accept, it's not just people, it's their parents as well. And third, not many, we don't have many quality trainers, although the third is being overcome quite a lot because we have like virtual training these days, and there are a lot of people who can now take classes on Zoom and stuff. But back then it was very difficult. I would say when it comes to a child or even a teenager, he has basically he or she has 3 points, three major connection points. One, parents. Two, teachers. And three, his or her ophthalmologist or doctor. If one of these three can be educated that, okay, a screen reading technology, assistive technology is something which can change this child's life, then I think this barrier can be abolished very early in a person's life, and he or she may not have to waste, or I would say struggle for those many years, which can be avoided altogether.
Absolutely. And again, as you said, technology is kind of helping out a little bit with that in terms of remote learning and stuff like that. Can we talk a little bit about your education, right? So let's say you were exposed to screen readers, and so was this so this was before your college education, before you went into college, right? Or was this
Yeah,
after?
just when I just started my college education, yes.
Okay. How were those days, right? Especially, again, I'm assuming a small college in a small town where people probably did not know much about how to support someone who is blind, right? How was that journey?
So when I initially started in year 2010, I could still read and write
Mhm,
using a table lamp and few lenses and other low vision aids.
mhm,
But it was not to be, because in next 1.5 years or so, I realized that it's like I'm almost burying my nose in the book. So
mhm,
it became extremely difficult. And then just because I had already learned how to use a screen reader, say 1.5 years back,
mhm,
I was comfortable enough to listen to a screen reader, basically to
mhm.
listen and learn and not to see and learn. So
Were there any catalysts in that that helped you pick up screen reader skills very quickly? Because I remember when we met, you were already a power screen reader user, so that was extremely impressive, right? And so, were there things that helped you pick it up that fast as you did, right? And do you have any recommendations for people who might just be getting who might be getting started with using assistive technologies like screen readers?
I would have only one recommendation, which and a golden recommendation, I say, which was passed by my trainer at National Association for the Blind, Faridabad.
Mhm.
It's basically always listen to what your screen reader says, then take the action. Never mug up the commands. Always listen to all the menus, read through the help documentation. It's not very difficult to learn.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when it comes to my progress, the biggest catalyst was my interest and my interest and my comfort with the technology. I would say first interest, and then I became comfortable. Yes, and basically I could see the potential. Okay, this has too many things to offer. I had started going into webinars. I even remember seeing you for the first time, and I was like, oh, I mean, a school child back then. You were in school, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, so brilliant, and
Uh-huh.
technology has a pivotal role in this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those were big motivations. And when actually I started switching, reading through e-text, and say moving from, as I said, learning by seeing
Mhm.
to learning by listening,
Mhm.
the biggest thing was I would say I had to do pretty much things on my own. My parents at times used to record the sessions for me. I used to scan my books on my own. NAB Delhi at times proved very helpful towards editing them or recording the mathematical content. Now we still have Mathml, which is reasonably accessible way of reading maths. Back then it was not very popular. Even now it is not very popular, but still the situation is. So yeah, those were the main difficulties initially, to basically adjust and then to find the material which was not in accessible format. So I had to create that.
Yeah, well, and just for the benefit of the audience, Mathml is essentially a standard that is used for rendering math essentially, which then can interface with your screen reader and can make your math accessible. So that is what Ajay was talking about. Okay.
So one more thing which I want to relate with Mathml, because that's a very important thing which a lot of our participants would find interesting, is that basically a lot of places when we as a blind person encounter mathematical contents, a lot of people just click a picture of the equation and insert it in a Word document or a PDF or any document for that matter. So that is not accessible. But if it's typed using like in Mathml, using math type properly, then you as a screen reader user can read an equation very accessibly.
Yeah, and I would also say now with equation editor as well in Microsoft Word. So even if you do have to do it, please don't.
Yes.
Yeah, please don't click a picture. It's a very good point. Something that we struggle with all the time. And a shameless plug for what we're doing at ISTEM as well, where we're trying to like do some math OCR. Again, the solution is we ideally hope that people don't even have to go that route and people can make accessible content from the very beginning. But in case you do come across inaccessible content, go and check it out. And we're looking for feedback. So happy to get any feedback that you might have. Okay, so let's jump off to now you're using a screen reader, you're in college. And so you briefly talked about that experience. How was the social acceptance there in your college?
I would say social acceptance was, there were two extremes. At one place, people were simply awestruck that, hey, I mean, this guy can do so much. His computer actually sounds faster than a robot. So, because we generally tend to use our screen reading software as at a very high speed, and on the other side, there were people who were like, I mean, I still remember one lecturer remarking on me that who gives admission to such people in these colleges? He does not know how to put a sign properly. So there were two extremes. I was lucky that those either who were awestruck or who were supportive were larger in number. So it could pass. So the support system was so much that for my graduation was of 3 years and 6 semesters. First year, I had to arrange a writer or a scribe for myself to write my exams. Next year onwards, my classmates, one or the other, would find their brother, their cousin, their friend's brother, sister, anyone who can actually act like a scribe. I didn't have to arrange a scribe ever after my first year.
That is awesome. That's very good to hear.
That was the support system. And why it could happen that way? Because I could accept my disability and I did not shy away from telling them, okay, see what, I think I'm a person first before my disability. And then of course they also realized it that, yes, I mean, this is a small help. If can be extended, then it would be great.
And I think one point is very noteworthy there, right? Like as people with disabilities, sometimes we do expect that, we're going to get everything, right? And people are going to come to us, ask us, what do you need? That is not how it really works, right? It basically works both ways. If you want others to be inclusive, you've got to basically go out and reach out to people and make them feel comfortable about you and your disability as well. I mean, that's the only way that people are going to, talk to you, take you seriously, any of that, right? So that I think is extremely important, Ajay, that you're talking about, right? Like, which is you also made the effort. You went out and tried to become friends with them. And then, of course, you were able to break the ice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, jump off to your IIM days. Tell me a little bit about the preparation.
Okay. So it was alongside my college education during the third year. So I used to follow, like, there there were social media networks, mailing lists and stuff of blind people. I just used to see, okay, what is this guy doing? What is this girl doing? I used to just send them, you know, random text messages through social media. Okay, if there is an MBA in finance, sir, I would like to talk to you. Ma'am, I would like to talk to you. Some CA, some lawyer, anyone. It helped me understand, you know, which are the professions where persons with disability are currently employed, and what are their challenges, and how are they making their lives easier, or how are they working around those challenges, how are they basically surviving in their professions, and how are they thriving.
Yeah.
So then I decided, okay, I mean, I want to work in a corporate. I want to do an MBA. Initially, the idea was of HR. So I did think of sitting for CAT examination, the common aptitude test. So uh, then I basically enrolled with a coaching institute. People were very helpful there. Again, when it comes to equations and stuff, although the material wasn't accessible, but I used to sit with instructors after the classes, after the sessions.
Sorry to cut you off there. What about the material was inaccessible?
The same thing. The equations were put as pictures.
Okay. Can you also explain, right, just for the sake of the audience, let's say someone were to type out somehow, right, not in a non-accessible way, just by default, and convert that to a PDF. How does it, like, what happens? Like, what is so hard about reading that kind of math? Right? Because
so if someone
for
just
example,
types it out and converts it in a PDF and does not type it through the equation editor, or I would say math type, a screen reader would not identify a fraction as a fraction, or it would not identify something like a superscript, which you write as a power. So
it's basically just plain text.
Plain text. It's plain text. You won't be able. It would be like 3 to the power 2, or it would be like 3 space 2. Your screen reader won't be able to identify subscripts. In a Word doc, it may, but in PDF, it won't.
Yeah. All right. And what about diagrams?
Sorry to interrupt, but there is one question from Muskan Gupta. She is asking, how did you identify people with visual impairments on social media?
Okay, very good question. So I would like to mention that social media, yes, there is a mailing list called Access India, where I used to see quite a lot of emails from different people on different issues, and I still follow the mailing list religiously till this day, and I think even Karthik also does. So really that's very helpful for those same people. I used to search them on social media, and then I used to connect with them. Next point, which I want to talk here about, is there used to be a radio show called Aive Ye Hai Roshni Ka Karwa. So they used to interview people from different walks of life. And if I've heard, say, Karthik's interview or anyone else's interview, I used to look for them on social media. Okay, now this is this person's name and he does this or she does this. Okay, let's look for them, no? So that's how it started.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, that's also like, it's all about networking. It's all about asking other people. It's all about, doing your research using these various programs and organizations, etc., mailing lists. And the more and more, technology is coming in. There's so many WhatsApp groups these days that have been created, and like,
these days things are very easy as compared to those times, because we have things like iSTEM. We have a lot of other mentorship programs as well, where you can directly put in touch with people from the same profession, or where you actually want to be.
Exactly. Well, and not just that. I mean, I think because of technology, even not just in India, you're able to like talk to people outside. If let's say you want to be a doctor, and there's, and you want to be the first one to be a doctor, go and talk to someone in the US and understand, okay, what are some of these things that you did, right? And yes, the circumstances may be different. Yes, what you may have to do will be different, but at the end of the day, they might be able to share some insights with you that you hadn't thought through, or some accommodations that may still very well work in India. And so, I mean, I guess now, of course, all is possible. All right, let's jump back into your CAT preparation, right? So tell me a little bit about diagrams. How do you approach those?
So I knew that it wasn't possible for me, and I didn't have a very, I would say, sighted support available at my home as such. So I used to, my parents hired a volunteer for me who used to read out the equations for me and also the diagrams, like basically data interpretation and stuff. So that became very easy for me to practice. I used to practice daily with the volunteer for like 2.5 hours. So it helped a lot. I won't say I've practiced for hours and hours together for CAT. No, it was the consistency which proved helpful.
Awesome. Okay, so you got through CAT. Is there anything else you want to talk about that exam here that you think might be beneficial, or otherwise we can go into the IIM experience?
I guess we can go ahead.
All right, let's do it. So how was the IIM experience?
Initially, I realized that somehow I'm in the middle of a sea and I don't know how to swim. So it was like, first, in IIM you have like 3 terms in 1 year. A year is divided into 3 terms, and the first term was spent just to understand the system and cope up. I would say friends were very helpful again in IIMs as well, but the sheer amount of workload and the sheer amount of speed you were expected to deliver, the kind of agility you were expected to show, it was very difficult for someone like me who has never seen that environment. I couldn't even speak 3 sentences in English at that time. So it was very difficult. But again, first term was difficult. I tried to figure out how to do certain things. Key challenges I faced was, okay, 1, how to talk to people. 2, how to deal with say something which is taught in class, because there was too much which was taught in one class. And thirdly, how to deal with maths again.
Yeah.
And
let's actually talk about each of them, because I think each of them are the problems that we all face and continue to face all the time, right? Communication, how do you work on that?
Communication, luckily there are a lot of people who were not that judgmental, with whom I could actually talk myself out. And there were special classes related to communication, be it English proficiency course, be it writing proficiency, be it even things like speaking, giving a presentation skills. And so there were workshops which I enrolled for in IIM, and those were actually very, very helpful. And
so it really comes down to practice, putting yourself in sort of challenging situations sometimes, which really practice.
And I would say people were not at all judgmental there. The instructors, awesome. Even the fellow participants, they were very, very professional.
Awesome. Okay, and then what about coping up with the fast speed?
Fast speed. Okay, so whatever was taught in class, it became very difficult for me to digest. So I literally used to type like I won't say stenographer, but my typing, I used to actually practice typing when I was free. So from the second term onwards, I used to type like.
All right.
it became so fast that whatever my professor is speaking, I used to just type it out. I was like, okay, I will extract the meaningful thing out of it once I'm in my room, in my hostel. Now let's type it out, because I don't want to record. And why I don't want to record is listening through something which I have typed is easier with my screen reader, which speaks very fast. I can listen through it in just like 7 or 10 minutes, whereas a recording would take entire 75 minutes.
Yep.
I don't have that much amount of time with me.
Yeah.
So that helped.
What would be your advice to a lot of people who prefer audio for various reasons, who might be shy of switching over to a screen reader? Because there are a lot of people in the community, right, like who prefer audio, just because that is what they've used in the past, right? What would your advice to them be in terms of trying to switch?
I would say a screen reader also has a lot of human sounding voices, like vocalizer, and so you can try switching onto screen reader. And one, I would say, hack or tip I want to give is, don't try to use a screen reader for something serious. try to use it for something which is funny. So, I mean, the biggest thing which difficulty which people face while switching over to a screen reader is, I don't understand the voice. And if you try to say read out a document, a serious document with the screen reader voice, firstly, you have to concentrate on the document. And secondly, you have to concentrate on the screen reader's voice. It would be very difficult.
Yeah.
Try to read out something like a social media post, no? Yeah. Try with something like a novel which you can read for leisure. Right. Try with Facebook. Try with a daily newspaper, which may be familiar to you. And then at least the first objective is to make yourself comfortable with that synthetic voice. Yeah. And then you can switch over to serious documents.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the third thing, math and diagrams?
Third thing, sadly, it continued to haunt me, but there was a smart workaround there. Apart from typing, professors were very helpful, of course. With them, I could sit after the classes and understand. But one key thing which a lot of IIMs now have started helping participants with disability is to assign or to pair them with, say, FPM, or I would say PhD participants from the specific area. So there were subjects like finance, there were subjects like operation management, there were subjects like quantitative techniques, all very mathematical, maths heavy, equation heavy subjects. So I was paired with, say, at one time I was working with 3 different PhD scholars, and they were teaching me. So it's a win-win situation, because you are getting the solution to your biggest problem, which is inaccessibility, and secondly, they are also getting a first-hand experience to teach someone.
Right. Absolutely.
So that used to be very, very helpful, and that proved like a game changer for me.
What about support directly from IIM other than this, right? So yes, they paired you up. Any other support from the institute?
The biggest support was I never had to bother about scribes. There were exams, and I was allowed to appear for the exam in whichever way or format I want. If I'm comfortable with a scribe, fine. If I'm comfortable with typing it out on my laptop, also fine. If I'm not comfortable with either of them, because there were some exams which were like, say, operations management, options, futures, and derivatives and stuff like that, which were too technical to be even dictated and even typed out on a laptop. My professors directly used to take a viva. I remember, in fact, there was a last term of the first year, third term, and the operation management used to be our last exam. And my professor was traveling that day when they conducted the exam. So during the day he was traveling, but he's like, I won't let you wait for next day, or I won't deduct one holiday from your list of very limited holidays from your break. So he actually called me to his house at 11. Faculties are resident there. We have resident faculties at IIM. So actually he called me to his house at 11 p.m. and he took my exam. It was a
Wow.
That's the kind of support and IIM provides you.
That is awesome. And I believe that goes beyond just institutional support, right? It's also the sort of culture that you
personal
have,
willingness. That's a culture to help.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's very good to hear. Any experience in general with scribes, though, and any recommendations on how this could be improved?
I would say the biggest recommendation I can give is practice as much as you can to type it out on a laptop. Give your exams through your laptop. It's very objective and it's very helpful. Whatever you are dictating, a scribe may not be able to handle that. And when it comes to exams where you have to say draw a diagram, I guess a viva which a professor or an instructor can directly administer instead of a scribe, that is more helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, in the interest of time, let's go to you now trying to find a job, right? So how was that?
Okay, so my internship was in HR domain. I did a core human resource related project.
How did you get this internship?
Yeah, so during my IM, we have companies visiting the campus, giving out internship offers to participants. I was not shortlisted for many of them. One, because of my blindness, I can say so, but more because I was from a very small college, and of course the acads were not that great, as they say in their IM language, purane pap. So,
All right.
so those were sins or not, I cannot say, and I shouldn't be saying this, but it looked like that, at least on my CV. So I didn't used to get quite a lot of shortlists, but my placement committee was very helpful. They never tried to actually push me in a process where I didn't want to go. They were like, we will own you. You may be the last one to get placed, but we will find you something which can be enriching for you. Not just doing our duty that, okay, we found you an internship. No.
Absolutely.
So I was amongst the last 10 participants in my first year who got placed for the internship. But I got something which I really wanted. I wanted HR at that time. And I got a very good project there.
Okay.
With a pharma company to work in Mumbai. Later on, I actually wrote a case study with one of my professors, inspired by my learnings from that project, and that is now it's now taught in IM's curriculum.
Awesome. And what about full time?
Afterwards, yeah, I realized that HR is good, but internships, you get an internship, say, in the second term, and in the third term, when you have finance in full force, I realized finance is something more interesting. I mean, and second year, we are supposed to take electives. I switched over to all finance electives. I took HR as well, but then I was like, no, my heart is still in finance now. So I took a lot of finance electives. Again, difficult to cope up with so many subjects having equations, but yes, foundation laid during first year with professors, with PhD students proved very helpful here as well. Because by that time, they had this notion that, okay, if we teach this guy, he will perform. So they were very helpful. Awesome. So then during my final placements, it was relatively easy. I won't say easy, but it was still better as compared to my internship because the placement committee was very helpful. They did ask me, okay, which roles you think would be of interest to you, and there are a lot of companies who also look for persons with disabilities as a diversity hire. Okay. So you go through the normal process, but if you don't get through, and if you still think that the role is good, we can at least talk to the company.
Yeah. What was the biggest hesitance that you thought was coming in from these companies, right?
The biggest hesitance is a lot of them, they actually don't know that how does a blind person actually work. Our culture has not portrayed. Do you have a single movie where you have seen a blind person operating a computer, especially Bollywood movie?
Yeah, no, yeah.
We don't, right?
Yeah, we don't. We've not been able to have that kind of.
We had a movie, say 4 years back. I won't name it, and I don't need to name it also. But there as well, in this age of technology, they didn't use a single assistive device.
Yeah.
I mean, don't digress from the storyline, but at least show which is true.
Yeah, an authentic.
So that plays a big role. Your surroundings, the culture, or whatever you have seen since the beginning. So not many people are aware. Okay, how does a blind person operate a computer? So that is the biggest reason of their hesitance. And again, India has so much competition. They have tens of other people to choose from who can do the job equally good or even at better level.
Yeah. For any corporate who might be listening right now, right? What message do you have?
My message is at least give the person an honest chance. Keep the questions ready. Never hesitate to ask something lest you offend anyone. No. I was even asked during one of my interviews that how do I shave? And I got that job. It's not that I didn't get that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how. So the placement committee was very helpful at IIM, and that's how I sat for Royal Bank of Scotland. I did get selected by them to work in their debt capital market division.
How expensive was it for them to provide you the accommodations that you needed to be successful? Because I hear that as one of the issues, right? That it is overwhelming. It might be a costly affair to try and make things accessible. Our campus is not accessible for someone who's blind, and we don't have that budget. How expensive was it for them to provide you
These
accommodations?
days, so I was already living away from my family in a campus which was far big than it was quite big as compared to any corporate campus would be. So physical accessibility, there was no special requirement which I had. I only needed a screen reading software because computer, I'm assuming, is provided to every person, every employee. A
Right.
screen reading software does not even cost half of the 1 month salary what is being generally offered to an IIM graduate.
Yeah. And of course,
So that's
there's
the
a
only
free one
cost you
as
have.
well now available in case you don't want
You
to
have
spend
the
that
free one
money.
as well,
Right.
which was pretty good.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of one of the myths, right? That people have that, oh, if I want to support someone who's blind, I've got to
And when it
basically.
comes to accessibility of
Yeah.
your systems, it's not a, I won't say it's not a good, it's not only a good practice, it's required and mandated by law as well.
Yeah.
And there are documented procedures like web accessibility guidelines and other procedures laid down for different best practices for designing applications and websites. So it's not a
Amazing.
hard job to be done.
Yeah. How was your overall experience, or how has your experience been over these past 5 years working at RBS and Deutsche Bank, right? Deutsche Bank. What have you observed, both positives as well as things that you think these organizations could improve?
So initially in RBS, I worked in the Delhi office for first 6 months. Then I realized, okay, Mumbai is a seat of action because Mumbai is the financial capital. I took a voluntary transfer to Mumbai, and the people were very helpful, and I was getting reasonable amount of exposure. But the biggest difficulty was it was an investment banking role, and which meant it was very PPT heavy. It was very difficult to deal with presentations, as in, okay, make this line, this border look gray, and okay, reduce the width of this border. This image is actually just drag it to this side or to that side. So I would say, in short, PowerPoint is something which still needs quite a lot of accessibility improvements. Although now Office does have a built-in accessibility checker and a lot of accessible ways to do things, but still, when it comes to final lookup of a presentation, I still don't think it's possible to produce a very, very professional looking presentation without actually getting it through someone who is sighted. So,
and perhaps an idea for some technical innovation there, in terms of what is possible. Okay. And how about at your current job?
So it became difficult. One thing which I want to highlight is I realized, apart from moving to Mumbai, I also realized that although I got a finance job from IIM, but when it comes to subject matter knowledge, I still lack behind. So then I thought to, okay, let's find out who has done CFA. I found a couple of one person who is in Singapore. I found one person from India as well, who have done CFAs. I did talk to them, and one was pursuing, one has already done. So then I realized, okay, I mean, let's just sit for the exam. I saw the curriculum and I was like, it's very interesting. So alongside my job, I also started studying for CFA. And
how was that preparation different from your CAT preparation?
This time, because the material was in complete accessible format, I could independently read each and everything on my laptop.
How did you get this accessible material?
CFA Institute provides you the material with when you register for the exam, and it's completely accessible.
And you didn't have to pay anything additional for it, did you?
No, I didn't have to.
Okay, awesome. All right. Okay. And how was the test taking experience?
Test taking experience were also good. They provided me with a very qualified writer, scribes who could understand my commands. And since it's a US based institute, they followed US, I would say Americans Disability Act instead of India's Act, where they were flexible enough to provide me as much as 100% extra time to complete my exam. And it was actually necessary.
I love that about the US.
Yes.
I think
And
that's
it was actually necessary because dictating a person how to operate a financial calculator, it took at least 30 to 40% of my exam time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So you qualified that, and that, and then what happened in terms of your job? How did this job change come about, and then how has your experience been here?
So when it comes to my current job, I would say, so in my CV, it shows 2 job changes, but originally these are 3 job changes. Why? Because while in RBS, I was like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to say, I'm not finding myself very comfortable in this investment banking kind of a role, or I would say origination kind of a role. So I was like, okay, move to something which is less PPT heavy, more analytical. Then through my peer network, I got to know of this opportunity with Deutsche Bank, and people are very inclusive. And I was never ever made to feel that, okay, I have a disability during the selection process. So it was very inclusive, right from providing soft copy of the case studies to say, having someone to escort me throughout or take me around the premises for my interview. It was all meticulously done. So when I joined Deutsche Bank, yes, initially it was, I did learn a lot of things and stuff, but I realized that, okay, this role is too dry and I'm not, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So then I approached my supervisor. Okay, I want to, go more, do something more towards, say, research or something which is analytical as well as where I have to write things as well.
Right.
I mean, this is not something which I'm finding interesting. And
Right.
it was like a daily deliverable kind of a job, which was not probably suitable for me because, at times the screen reader would hang or stuff. So hourly or daily deliverables is something which is difficult. So they were very helpful. They were like, okay, look out for a job and internally, and let's see what can be done.
Right.
So I did interview for my current job of credit officer. And yes, here also the experience was very good. I was selected, and just when I was selected, I was also appearing for CFA level 3. So I had my first day at my job, and I was given 2 weeks preparatory leave for studying for my exam or preparing.
Awesome.
So that is the kind of support we are talking about. And even in my current job, so there are a couple of systems, say, which are not accessible. So there is a system where I have to put financials of a company to make some calculations and stuff. That system is not accessible. I proposed that, okay, give me the manual of this system, how this works. I'll make an Excel sheet. And these guys were very helpful. They did provide me the manual, and I prepared an Excel sheet. So now at least I own my numbers. Any analyst can copy those numbers from Excel sheet and paste in the main system for compliance purposes.
And this brings me to another interesting point, right? Which is oftentimes you will never have.
Another thing which I would like to mention here is, so there was a standard practice to say we write reports, credit reports, and various kind of reports. A standard practice was to give the feedback. The supervisor used to give the feedback in a PDF document, the system generated PDF. I was like, somehow still Adobe is someone which is not actually taking accessibility very seriously now. So I don't think there is a way to identify, okay, the comment or something which text in a PDF is highlighted and being commented upon. I till date cannot figure it out. There is a way I would love to be corrected. So I was like, hey, but Microsoft does it quite well. In MS Word does it quite well. So why don't I submit my reports in a Word template? They're like, okay, we are ready to change the standard, the standard operating procedure for you. And then I give all my reports in a Word format and I get the feedback.
Awesome.
So there's a kind of accommodation, and it sounds like a very small thing, but to change the culture or something which is embedded, a very small thing embedded in the DNA, it is not very easy. But we have companies today which actually do that.
Well, I guess this comes back to both things, right? You, of course, taking the initiative and you telling them what the solutions could be. Had you just gone to them and said, oh, this is the problem, I cannot work with PDFs, I wonder what the solution would have been then, right? The fact that you went and you said, well, the experience in Word is very different, so why don't we go and do Word, right? So it's you giving them a solution that they can then work with and see if that's going to work for them. That, I think, is extremely key, right?
Yes.
As we think about some of these things, you just can't go with the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think the other thing also is, which I loved in this are the hacks that you yourself sort of came up with, right? With that Excel sheet, for example, and that has to happen, right? If you want to be successful, no matter how inclusive an organization may be, no matter how much they really care about all of this, there will definitely be things that will be inaccessible, and so it totally depends on you as someone with a disability. If you're a person with a disability,
I would say if one system is completely inaccessible, one process or one aspect of the job is completely inaccessible, you think it is inaccessible, try to at least figure out, okay, what percentage of this task can be made accessible with alternatives. Absolutely. The answer is most of it can be done. And if the system can itself be redesigned, that is the best way to go forward.
Oh, absolutely, for everyone, of course. Yeah, for sure. Okay, and so we're almost now to the end of this conversation. So I'd love for you to kind of share a message with people who might be blind or visually impaired, or people with disabilities in general. What would be your message to them? And then what would be your message to people without disabilities listening to this, both in terms of general messages, but also in terms of, especially now, since many people are looking to develop technical solutions to try and solve for accessibility and try and solve for some of these challenges that we talked about today in education or employment or just social connection kind of a thing. What would be your messages to them?
When it comes to persons with disability, I would say, yes, disability. Firstly, disability is not a disease, it's a condition. So you have to accept it. And we say person with disability. It has a meaning. You're first a person, and then disability comes into picture. And that is for everyone, those with or without disabilities. So with disabilities, focus on your personalities, focus on your likes and dislikes, focus on what you want to do, and then figure out a way, okay, how this can be done with a disability. And when it comes to someone who is non-disabled, I would say focus on a person's personality first. Okay, so there is this blind guy. Other than this, there is this guy who happens to be blind. So he can be funny, he can be introvert, he can be extrovert, he can be handsome, he can be a nerd, anything. So blindness or any other disability should not be the only yardstick which you identify a person with, and never ever shy away from asking if they need some help, but don't assume. And when it comes to persons with disabilities, don't just go with problems, also think of, okay, how this can be done. And when it comes to thinking of solutions, our exposure at times limits us to find a solution. Talk to as many people as you can about the problem. As Karthik very rightly said, networking is key. And to those who are developing technologies to solve any existing challenges on various aspects, I would say there has to be one key principle which I want them to pay attention on, is nothing for us without us. If you are developing something for persons with disabilities, make sure you have them. If you think that you have a startup which develops a next generation technology for persons with disabilities, if you don't have a person with disability, with the same disability in the decision-making power in your company, that itself defeats the purpose of the product.
Absolutely. I can't stress this enough. So many times I come across people who are making such amazing products, and they're spending a lot of time, effort, really trying, and they come with the best of intentions. And then they come back and they're like, well, we did this. And I'm like, well, why? I mean, this is how we do it.
That's not workable.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely key. Any suggestions to those who, because you participated in last year's hackathon as well, right? Any suggestions to those who are participating in the virtual hackathon this year in terms of how they should think about this? Of course, with people with disabilities on their teams.
I would say when it comes to my team, when I participated in the hackathon, say firstly, winning is not everything. Yes, if you win, if your idea wins, that's the icing on the cake. But the biggest thing is ideating it and coming up with a product, coming up with an original idea. So always look for an existing problem, and you as a team or you as a person may not be able to do each and everything on your own. It's necessary to divide the tasks and identify your core competencies. Okay, what you are good at. So for example, during our our project during hackathon was to design a tool which gives information about a company's share or finances in an accessible format. So while although I participated in hackathon, but I just did a basic Python course. I'm not at all a programmer, and I still have forgotten most of the concepts. So my job was firstly to give the idea and then to see how is the idea working. So if I would have also focused on trying to learn coding during that one day, I guess we won't have been able to do anything. So we have to identify our core competencies in such things and put those to use.
Absolutely. Explore how every team member can add value to the project. It doesn't have to be just development. It could be just coming up with the idea, as Ajay said, really polishing that idea, sharing a unique perspective that they have, given some experience that they might have in that specific industry that you're working with. That I think is obviously extremely, extremely important. A lot of the design process.
This actually connects with something which I previously said, that nothing with us without us. There are a lot of products, as Karthik also, there are a lot of products for persons with disabilities, which had a very good intention when they were designed. And the idea is very good. The technology behind is innovative, but they may lack something as basic as the speed.
Yeah.
So if a person with
being
disability
accessible, I guess that's the biggest one.
Yeah. So if a person with disability haven't tested them, despite the technology is being very good, it's still not solving the purpose.
And I guess you need to go beyond testing, right, Ajay? I think you need to, as you said, you need to have people in the decision-making authority.
Yes.
You need to involve people right at the design stage, right at the initial exploration that you're doing, to make sure that it's not like some fixing that you're doing at the end of it, right? But
if you have really 4 board members, have at least one who has the same set of disability for which you are developing a product.
Absolutely. With that, I think I know we're almost at time now. So thank you again, Ajay, for spending some time with us today, sharing your experiences, giving some really valuable advice to everyone.
Karthik, can we take a few questions from audience if they have any?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Do we have any questions in the chat, or if people have any questions, they can unmute themselves and ask at this point?
Well, I have a couple questions which might be relatable. So, like, we talked about MBA, we talked about job change and everything. What would your advice, Ajay, as someone with disability who wants to pursue the MBA, about CAT examination? There were so many things that you did it 5 years ago were not accessible, might have now become accessible. How to go for a CAT exam, and considering that, if someone wants to do make a transition in their career and wants to change their job, how do they proceed, and what would be the best use of their community?
I would answer step by step. One, when it comes to CAT, not much has changed actually. Although there are tools which can make things accessible, But still, when it comes to performing OCR on book, because for CAT you have material, even today you have material from coaching institutes which not necessarily follow the accessible practices. So I would still say the best idea even now also, not to waste your time to make it accessible, but also to have a volunteer with whom you can practice. Consistency is the key. So I mean, focus on as much as you can, do it on your own, but also outsource something which you cannot do on your own. I mean, have a volunteer with whom you can practice.
Right.
When it comes to job change, LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool. I can't stress its importance enough. You have many people who have their profiles updated on LinkedIn. Try connecting with people from the community, outside the community as well, in the kind of job you want to be in, and never shy away from, say, dropping them a message, dropping them an email. What would happen? They would just ignore it. But if they glance through it, which most of them do, if you drop them a personal message, you would definitely get at least a chance to represent yourself.
Any other questions?
Did I answer your question, Shakul?
Yes, for sure. Thanks so much for that.
Any other questions, anyone?
Yeah, so I have it more related to your MBA life. So, like, as far as I have heard, people pursuing an MBA, the people without disabilities, they are usually like everyone in an MBA is usually burdened with a lot of work, and the work is so much that there are times when you do not get a proper night's sleep also.
Yes.
So how did you manage doing your lectures? Like you mentioned, right? You used to come back to your room and then you used to go through the content again, plus that workload. So both the things together, how did you manage?
Okay. If I may ask your name, please.
Muskan.
Okay. So Muskan, how it happened was, I would say it's all about time management. Yes, the workload is too much. It's very intense. But if you make a timetable, it's not impossible. I mean, it's just that those guys used to spend couple of hours, say, sitting just outside the hostel, chit-chatting. I used to cut 1 hour from chit-chatting. I was not someone who was always caged up in my room. No. Cut 1 hour from chit-chatting, cut 1 hour from my sleep. I got 2 extra hours. Okay. So it's all, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about how you divide those 24 hours in one day to do what you actually want to do. See what is your priority and what is not your priority. Okay. It generally works out.
And what about the extracurriculars which usually go on?
Extracurriculars is also very good and it's very important. Sadly, during my first year, I could not participate in many extracurricular activities because yes, it was very difficult for me to manage the time. But now when I look back, I had a lot of unique challenges, say mastering my language skills and a lot of other things which other people may not have. So I would say first make yourself comfortable in the environment for the main purpose for which you are actually there, and then extracurriculars also follow. So for example, in second year I did participate in few of the things. I did go to the Himalayan outbound program. I wrote a case. I was an active member of debating society. So then second year I did start participating in extracurriculars. But yes, when it comes to first year, it entirely depends on case to case basis. You have to observe how much ground you actually have to cover. Some of my peers who are with disabilities and who are from IIMs were able to put themselves right from the beginning in the extracurricular. So it's about how much you can actually take it.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions, anyone? Cheryl, do we have anything in the chat?
No.
Okay, so my last message to persons with disability is it's necessary to own your strengths as well as your weaknesses. We have to be comfortable with ourselves. Okay. then we can make any other person comfortable.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. Okay, if no other questions, again, with this really good message, thank you everyone for your time, especially Ajay for sharing your perspective, your insights with us. Really, really helpful. I'm sure people will benefit a lot, not just in terms of trying to figure out things for themselves as people with disabilities, but also for those who are developing solutions or those wanting to learn more about the disability community. So yeah, thank you everyone, and we hope to see you soon on the next webinar.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks, iSTEM, for this opportunity. It was indeed a pleasure to connect with everyone here. And for those who would be watching this through the recording or on the YouTube, wherever it is being published. But yes, it was an absolute pleasure. And it's not very difficult to reach me. So those who even want to reach me can take my contact numbers from the iSTEM as well. And I would be happy to guide wherever I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ajay.
Thank you.